Hello YouTube family and welcome to Simple Homesteading. Today we're going to show you a simple way of making sauerkraut. Now when we were younger, other than sauerkraut on Reuben sandwiches, we weren't too keen about sauerkraut. However, the older we have gotten, our tastes have changed and we like sauerkraut on different things. And because we grow a lot of cabbage, we wanted to find different ways in which to eat the things that we grow. And one of those is to make sauerkraut. Now, the thought of making sauerkraut was incredibly intimidating as we've thought about how our parents or our extended family have worked to make sauerkraut in the past. We're like, man, that's a lot of work. However, we've ended up finding a simpler way to make sauerkraut. Did it this last year, was very happy with how things came out and the taste and flavor of the sauerkraut. So again, even if maybe you're not a big fan of sauerkraut, I think doing this at least once and giving it a shot isn't going to waste a lot of time and money for you. So first, Lynn, show them really quick the recipe that we got this out of.
I got the recipe out of the Home Preserving Ball cookbook.
So what we're going to do now is just take this step by step and show you all the ways in which we make our sauerkraut.
Okay, the first thing I have to do is shred all of my cabbage. So I've got 4 heads of cabbage here. That's about 10 pounds of cabbage. The recipe calls for 25 pounds, but it says every 5 pounds add 3 tablespoons of pickling salt. So I'm actually gonna weigh out my shredded cabbage, and every 5 pounds add 3 tablespoons of pickling salt to it and mix it up. You'll see as I go along. With my food processor, I can process about a half a head of cabbage, and I have just done that. It's full. I like a little bit of a coarser grind, so if you can see how coarse that is, that's what I like. You can do it to the coarseness that you like. That's all your call. At this point, I need to start weighing out my cabbage and get 5 pounds. And for 5 pounds of cabbage, I need to add 3 tablespoons of salt. And what I use is the Morton canning and pickling salt. You can use kosher salt. You can use a pink Himalayan sea salt. Just make sure it's a good quality salt. And then I zero it out. That's 2 pounds. Well, I forgot to zero it out when I put it back on. Okay, that's 4 pounds. I'm gonna have to shred it a little bit more to get 5. As you can see, I overestimated how much space I would need for 5 pounds of, or I should say I underestimated how much space I would need for 5 pounds of cabbage. So what I'm gonna actually do is measure it out into 2.5 pounds and separate it in 2 different bowls. And then when you divide 3 by 1/2, you get 1.5 tablespoons. So I'm gonna add 2.5 pounds of cabbage, 1.5 tablespoons of the pickling salt, mix them together and go from there. Okay, since I measured out 5 pounds all together, I took out 2.5 pounds, so I should have 2.5 pounds here, 2.5 pounds here. I'm gonna stick this one in this bowl, and now I'm gonna add my salt. There's 1 tablespoon there. 1 tablespoon there. Excuse me. Half a tablespoon. Half a tablespoon. I've got to mix the salt in, and I don't want the salt on my hands. I tend to get my cuticles break a lot, so I don't want that salt on there. So I'm just going to mix with my hands as best I can. Get that salt all mixed in there. You see the salt there on the top. I'm just going to do the best I can to get this one mixed in without spilling it all over the place. My husband laughs because he knows I spill stuff all over the place. But especially when you have a smaller bowl.
The best cooks are messy cooks.
Now I'm going to leave this 5 pounds of cabbage, and I'm going to let it set for about 15 minutes. The salt needs to kind of suck the water out of the cabbage. And after that 15 minutes, then I'm going to start pressing the cabbage down. I have 3 batches of 2.5 pounds. They've been sitting for about 15 minutes. At this point, you squish them down and you get as much water out of them as you can. But you do that while you're putting it into your jar. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in a jar, and then I'm going to push it down. Now, if you didn't want to use half-gallon canning jars and you have a nice big crock, you can put it all together in the crock and push it down and push it down and put a plate over it. But with what I have here, this seems to work best for me. as you can see, as I'm pushing, you can see the juices coming out of the cabbage. So that's what you should be seeing when you're pushing it down in the jar. The juices need to come up. That's creating that brine that you will need for the fermentation of the sauerkraut. Okay, these 2 jars I'm gonna let set here for probably another 15-20 minutes. And then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna push down. I have another 2.5 pounds of cabbage here that I'm gonna actually put in here after I push these down again, because I want them to push down until I have them about to here and the juices are covering it.
Yep.
Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do here is, the directions say after every 15 minutes, push it down again and do it about 4 times. So this is my second time of pushing it down. The goal here is to get the water in the cabbage to come up above the cabbage. I'm just going to use this little plunger thing that I have to help me get it down in there. And you can see the juices coming up. And it does take a little pushing. Does take a little effort to get it pushed down in there. You see the water that is coming up out of the cabbage when you do that. Okay, that one's done. I'm going to do that same thing to these other 2 and wait another 15 minutes. As you can see, I have punched this all down. And you can see, if I put this little plunger in there, how much water is actually in here. That's the brine created all just from the cabbage and salt. I did not add any extra brine. If you have drier cabbage, I guess, than I do, you would have to add a little bit of brine. The directions for that are in the cookbook. Okay, something I should have told you in the beginning was you need to save some outer leaves of your cabbage head, because everything I've seen on YouTube, a lot of people will cover their brine with a head of cabbage and weigh it down, and that prevents loss of the sauerkraut. So that's what I'm doing right now, and then I'm going to weigh it down. Now I don't have the little weights, so I'm just going to use little jelly jars which fit right inside my half-gallon jars and use those as weights. So that's what I'm doing right now. Let's see if I can get this head of cabbage, this leaf of cabbage in here without losing too much of the other cabbage. And then I'm going to put this in and kind of weigh it down. Okay, I'm seeing I have a lot of brine there, which I wasn't quite anticipating. So I'm going to suck some of the brine out. The point of the water is to cover the cabbage. So I'm going to suck a bunch of it out, so that it has some room to ferment and I won't be spilling this water all over where I'm storing the, there we go. That looks good. I'm gonna put my little jar on there now. Now what I do is I just take a clean canning lid and a ring and I just loosely put that on there. I do not put it tight. You don't put it tight because you have to have room for the gas to gas off as it's fermenting. So that's how you do that part of your sauerkraut. And then you just wait for about 6 weeks for the fermenting to happen. Now you do need to go every day, not every day, maybe every few days, and check to see if you're getting scum around the top. If you're getting scum around the top, take your weight off, spoon off the scum, and then put your weight back in and wait some more. Okay, that's how you make sauerkraut. Okay, one last thing is, how do I know when this is all done? The directions in the book say you wait for the bubbles to all disappear and they won't be there anymore. What I have noticed when I've done it in the past, your cabbage becomes more translucent And when you lift this off, you'll start smelling that sauerkrauty, sour smell. And when you have that smell, you know it's done. You can also lift off your leaf and your weight and taste it and see if you like what it's tasting like. But it usually does take about 6 weeks for all of that to happen. Oh, one more thing. What do you do after the 6 weeks and it's all done? Well, what I do is I can it. So in 6 weeks, I'll show you how I can it. See you then. Now, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to help our channel, subscribe. And now I wish that you have a blessed day.